Welcome. Today I'll be talking about web creation, the third step into the path of a digital marketer. And I want to mention what the differences are between the different types of builders and just what you should stick with maybe in the beginning. Just a bit of information on the theory behind what the web creation process looks like. Because if you don't know a bit of theory, then you'll just jump into any builder and probably get hurt in a figurative speech way. Okay, so web creation is the process of creating your website. There are many ways to create your website nowadays, and you could go the web development route and learn language and code. But if you just want to learn, you'll be learning no-code tools and page builders and CMSs if you just want to learn to create your websites faster. So these are systems like Kartra, ClickFunnels, WEBFLOW, DESIGNERX, Wix, Shopify, WordPress, Squarespace, GrooveFunnels, there are a bunch of them. Now I want to cover a few of these just to show the differences between the types of tools. Now the types are CMSs, elegant designers like WebFlow. The CMSs are things like Shopify, Wix, WordPress, Squarespace. And then there are page builders that are more like ClickFunnels, Kartra, and GrooveFunnels. I'll start with CMSs. Now these tools use tabs and menu sections that you fill out, and then the content is displayed automatically. These types of builders are probably the easiest ones to use, and they have a lot of guidance and tooltips to help you build. Also, there are a lot of themes that are available that you can purchase, and these themes go from maybe 20 bucks to about 500 bucks depending on your theme. You can find cheap themes with a lot of features, but you got to watch out for support. If there's no support, if it's one person that created this and they don't offer support, then you'll be stuck with a theme that's hard to build and hard to manage, and there are no explanations as to what goes where. So you got to be careful with that. I would try to use a theme that's certified by the CMS platform. So for example, certified by Shopify doesn't mean they built it, but it means that they've seen it, they've verified it. I would suggest Out of the Sandbox. That's a company that builds very good themes for Shopify. The most attractive part of a CMS is as the name suggests, it manages your content. So if you want to blog, then just hit the blog button and it'll create one for you. Now they take care of the connections between the databases running in the background, basically. If you're just starting, then I would suggest you start your journey with CMS. It's probably the easiest way and fastest way to build a website. Now the downside to CMSs is the level of customization. It's pretty minimal. So first you'll get a theme. A theme is basically the template that you'll use so you don't have to start from scratch. Nobody starts from scratch nowadays. Everybody uses something to start off with because it's a lot easier and it's a lot faster. It'll skip a lot of steps that are more basic and tedious. Unless you're building a really high-class website for a client that's really demanding it, and it's pretty rare, then you'll want to start with a template. Another con is that most sites will have a big similarity. If you go to a site built by Shopify, then most of the times you can tell already that it's built on Shopify just by the way the cart is positioned, and the icons sometimes, like the cart icon can't be changed. And obviously anything can be changed in a Shopify template, but you'll need to access the code and edit the liquid language code. That's out of the scope of the CMS. If you do that, then might as well build something on another platform. One last thing I want to mention is that content management systems use plugins to customize your site. Some of them you'll have to pay, obviously. Some of them are going to be free, and that can put a lot of weight on your website. It can be worth it, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of people use plugins for like little things that are not worth it. On Shopify, I've used Shogun successfully, a very good platform to edit your design. So if you want to do something that's out of the scope of your theme and you can't modify something because the limit of the theme is set like that, then you can use a builder like Shogun, which is a plugin that you install on Shopify and lets you drag and drop elements in a different way. And that also makes the code heavier. So you got to watch out not to do too much. And for WordPress, I would use Elementor. But note that these will decrease your page load speed significantly. So think carefully if it's worth it, especially if your site has a lot of video content like images and heavy files. Now this, as you can probably tell, or maybe, is a Shopify store. You can tell by the look of the different elements and just the feel of it. I mean, you can't always tell, but you can tell a lot of times when someone's using Shopify, because it's pretty much templated and the things are pretty much the same, you know, like that kind of square, like all these different things. They intuitively tell you that it's Shopify, but you have to have seen a lot of them, obviously, to know for sure. Now these little icons, like, they can't be changed. You know, you're pretty much bound to the template that you're using. Contrary to WebFlow, you can really do a lot more if you're doing an e-commerce, for example, because in e-commerce, you'll have to have a lot of capabilities for products and checkout page and the add to cart page, all that stuff. It's already done in Shopify. So here, for example, is the products. You add your product from the back end right here. And you see, this is a field. In Webflow, you would create a field that would be a product title and then description. And then all these things, the images, you choose what you want to put. You do a select option here so that you can choose the size. But you have to create that on your own, and it's a lot more time consuming than here. Here, everything's done for you. Just fill out this stuff. It's like a paper that like you have to fill it up. But Webflow is like a paper that's blank. But you have the tools to do the customization though. You have a lot of already pre-made things here. You have a few marketing accessories. You got apps that you can integrate. But all in all, it's going to depend on what you want to do with your store. And I'll show you the back end of Shopify when you customize a store. And you can compare that with the Webflow video that I've done. The back end is very different. Okay, so you see here, when we want to change something, you actually have the viewer here, the preview, and then here you have the elements that you can change. So if I want to change an image, then I'll click here, and then it's going to show me, oh, it's this image. Okay, well, I can change these images I can either delete them, rearrange them like this, or I can add images. But in this case, it only lets you have 5. Now, if I want to put more than 5, what's going to happen is that I'm going to have to get that coded. So I'm going to have to pay someone to come in the code, edit some liquid code, which is because the code for Shopify is called liquid language, and we'll have to add some sections. You don't necessarily have to do this. Sometimes you can add a section from here, for example. You see, I can choose different sections, and in this case, it would be an image icon, just like this one, but I can't add it here. I would have to do a new section of 5 icons, which would go under that. And I can choose to only put 1 icon if I want, instead of 5, but I won't be able to add another one here within these ones and make them tighter, you know. You can't do that. And so this is the lack of customization that I was talking about. Like I said, if you're beginning, I suggest you start with something like this because everything's pre-made for you. Then when you go on to wanting more appetizing websites and have something more flashy and look more elegant, and you can charge more for your websites, then at that point you can start doing some Webflow. But no matter what, if you're working with a client, I suggest that Webflow, you stick with that personally. So you build your own website on Webflow, and then when you know you can build your own website and you've dabbled around in it, then you can start creating something maybe for your friend or for someone a bit closer. Then when you're feeling pretty comfortable and you've watched a lot of documentation and videos, and they do have a lot of that, then you can start to actually build a website for a client. My first website that I've built for a client on Webflow was I charged $2,500, and then for a few additional integrations like Google Analytics and all that, Tag Manager, I've charged I think $600. So that was my first gig on a website for Webflow. From there, I started charging more, and you can charge up to 15 grand for a website on Webflow when you're still a beginner. When you start going more like high level, then you can start charging 20, 30, 50. I'm not at that level because I haven't gone into the website design things. I'm not really a pro website designer, but I could do a very nice website for someone that needs one, but it's not what I'm aiming for. What I'm aiming for when I sell a client, it's probably going to be for the SEO or the tracking. So either they need a lot of custom tracking, analytics involved in their business. They need to start making data-driven decisions, or they want SEO implemented and the keyword research and all that. And a lot of times they want a website with that. And so I'm not going to say no, but I do admit that I prefer not to do the website because it takes a lot of time for me since I'm not so used to it. Like I'm not building 10, 15 websites a year. I probably build a website or two, maybe 3, 4 max during a year. It takes a lot of my time. And so, yeah, you need to choose which designer you want to use. And I suggest you start with something like Shopify or Wix just to get your hands dirty. And then once you get into it, you can start looking at what you want. I would suggest if you choose something like that, a CMS, go with WordPress. It's really one of the best. All right, that's it, guys. I'll let you go and take care. We'll see you soon, and look out for those new videos in the mini series. Take care. Now let's go over the page builders like ClickFunnels, Kartra, GrooveFunnels. These platforms have less customization than CMSs, but it depends on what aspect I'm talking about here. And what aspect I'm talking about is on the customization of the overall builder of the website. So for example, if you're trying to add a blog, then it's going to be complicated to do that. If you're building an e-commerce site, for example, then better stick with a Shopify site or a Wix site, probably Shopify. I would avoid Wix. In the end, you'll find your options like shopping cart, checkout page, all that stuff. You can do that on other page builders like ClickFunnels and GrooveFunnels, but the price is way out of hand for that. You're not paying for that. What you're paying for when you get a page builder is that you want all the different steps of a funnel to be easily accessible to you. So if you want to create a page where you're talking about a product, and then at the end of the product you have a checkout button or add to cart button, and then when they click it, then they'll get redirected to the next page. And on that next page you can say something like, wait, you forgot this item, you can add this for 50% off. Then you click no, but then it redirects you to another step. But if they would have clicked yes, you wanted them to get to a different page. So that level of customization in the funnel steps is what a page builder will allow you to do. When Shopify, they'll choose the way your pages are set, and they'll even sometimes choose the name based on product page, collection pages. Like, you can't change that name. Sometimes if it's a product, then it's going to be product something.com/product/ whatever the name of the page is. But if you want to create something more customizable at the page level, then you'll use a page builder. Within a CMS, you can't control the checkout process. It's really rigid and it's built the way it is, and for good reasons, because you don't want to be messing too much around with the checkout process. It's very delicate and it can make you lose a lot of money. And another thing is that if you don't know what you're really doing when you're creating funnel steps, it can get very annoying for customers. It's a very aggressive type of marketing. When you're building funnels with upsells, cross-sells, and downsells, you gotta be careful and know what you're doing. If not, you could lose some customers. Now here we have a page builder. This is GrooveFunnels. It's basically a good mix of a web designer like WEBFLOW and something like Shopify. So you have quite a lot of customization, but especially at the feature side. So for example, you can have pages that lead to another page. So for example, someone clicks on this, then they'll get directed to another page which has an upsell. And so then if they click yes or no, then they can get directed to another sell maybe, or a downsell or a cross sell. But in the end, it's really about maneuvering your funnels. And it's really interesting if you have a website that can do these type of things, but sometimes it can come off a bit too pushy. So you need to know what type of business you're doing this for and if your brand supports it. But as you can see, you can add elements. For example, you can add a column here. You can see that there's a 1 column here, 2 column, 3 column, 4 columns. You can add headers, H1s, 2s, 3s. You can add all these different types of elements. These are all elements. They're buttons, media, so images, forms. You can add checkout buttons, embeds. So you can add a lot of different things. You can even add code. So all that stuff is doable, but you'll still be lacking some customization. Usually less than Shopify, so you can probably do more than Shopify types of designers. So, but it depends. It depends which one. Like if you're using ClickFunnels, I know there's less customization, but GrooveFunnels, they're pretty new in the game. I think they've been there for about 2-3 years now. They're still developing, but they're doing a pretty good job. Their software is not really complete, I would say, but this software is the most complete out of their software. So they have a lot of different mixes. They have like Groove Page, they have like Groove Mail for CRM, like MailChimp. They've got a lot of different software. They're trying to do an all-in-one, like having only to deal with GrooveFunnels, which I don't see they are really capable of right now. Like if you're already inside the digital marketing space and active with clients and stuff, then you're not going to use this. But you can use it for some things like building pages. You see, like I purchased this and now I can build pages for free. So if a client needs a sale page for his website, you see that was the Simpltea website. It's not their website. It's just a landing page where there's a promotion and people can buy things. It's an old design. So yeah, then here you can add spacing to any element. So if here I want to add, for example, some spacing to the left or to the right, I can move this and you see it's moving it. It works pretty well, but sometimes there'll be a little bit of bugs, but that's normal in any platform. You'll find that. And so you've got a lot of shadowing effects, you've got the layout effects, you can choose flex box, inline block, tables. A lot of these are positioning aspects, so if you want to have transparency, you can do global styles so that all the different, you see like light green check icon. So that's all of these. I just did once the color, and then as soon as I did it once, I gave all of these the same global effect. So that way I don't have to do it more than once. And so that's a page builder. Its functionalities are similar to CMS, but there's a mix of adding, dragging elements to the page, and you don't have that in Shopify. You can't drag stuff and just put them where you want. Hope you guys like this short little screenshot, and we'll get back to the video. Alright, now for more elegant designers like WEBFLOW or DESIGNERX, which is built by Wix, by the way. It's just a more customizable designer. You'll get most of the customization out of these systems. That's what you get. You really get granular, and the position of the elements, the flow of the page. You create animations that work exactly how you want it and when you want it at the speed that you want it. For example, in Shopify, you might be able to add a buy button with a little shaky animation, like when you hover the button, it shakes, but it might look a little flimsy because it shakes too fast. Maybe you're like, it doesn't shake exactly how I would like it to shake. It's maybe too fast, or it starts too soon, or something like that. Well, in WEBFLOW, you would be able to edit the speed of the shaking, the amount of shaking, whether the shake will start at set amount of time after someone hovered over it, and when it'll stop. So all that stuff is possible. It does take time, but that's my point. You get more granular, it takes more time, you get something more customized, and well, you can charge more. But I don't suggest it in the beginning because it is hard to get high paying clients in the beginning anyway. So you might as well start with the CMS, and then when you get your feet wet and you understand a little bit more, then at that point you can always work on WEBFLOW on your own website. That's what I did. I started with my own website because it was a bit more easy to calculate my time with that. Like I wasn't rushed. Now I want to mention that these designers, they have a great advantage, and you can really take advantage of that if you can design a very beautiful website, graph with animations and like movements and things that you don't regularly see in websites. But not a lot of people are willing to pay for that. You want to be really specific with what you sell, and if you start selling all types of things, then you won't really get better at anything. And I also want to mention that these designers have a pretty high learning curve, so they're different than the other web builders, and it's a bit more complicated to learn, but it is learnable, of course. Although you don't need to know how to code to use these types of softwares, you will need to understand basic elements of HTML and CSS and just how they roughly work. Not really how to code it, but you'll need to know how they function together. You'd need to know knowledge of certain processes and certain ways that things go together, like for example concepts like flexbox or the grid displays. And these are basically ways that the elements are relative to each other or positioned between each other. There are also concepts like relative, sticky, absolute, which are position-based settings, and they determine where an element it will be on the page based on another element, or based on the page itself. Well, you'll need to grasp these concepts and the use of HTML and CSS just a little bit, I would say about a week or so of learning these things, and you'll get what you need to actually use something like WEBFLOW. Alright, this is the type of customization that you can do with a designer like WEBFLOW. I haven't used DESIGNERX, but it looks pretty similar, and it has the same functionality, and they're kind of competing with WEBFLOW. Let's say intro. Let's just preview it in a browser. Okay, so as you can see here, this is just a regular intro page. Not many sites have them, but it's just a good example because you can see how customizable your background could be. This behind is a video, a slow motion video of stars. But when you hover over this, we want another video to play, which is the same video as this one, but going faster. So basically, it's not like the stars are moving, it's actually that there are two different videos going on. And so once you hover over it, it goes fast, and then it goes back to the original slow motion. You see the button explodes as well. You can choose like how to customize the button, like the border, all that stuff, the corners. This is the type of customization you can do in WEBFLOW. If you have something like Shopify, then you can't do that. And so here we're gonna show you another example. So this is the page. Actually, when you click on this, it brings you to the page. This is a homepage of a friend's site that I'm creating for him. Taking my time because he wants a nice website, but at the same time he wants to change the name, and he has a lot of changes he wants to do, so it's not ready. And I'm not ready either, because he has some stuff that he needs to give me, like text and stuff. As you can see, this was fully customized, like really from scratch. Like nothing was, except it wasn't done with code. It was done with no-code software designer, that is WEBFLOW. And you see here, for example, when you hover here, you see like a gray background fading in slowly, but you choose the speed of that. You choose how fast you want the button to pop up. You see this button right here, and the shadow that's behind it, all that stuff you choose. And you can't have that type of customization in builders like WEBFLOW, like Shopify and Wix and all that, like CMSs. But as you can see, it takes much more time as well, because you see doing just this little thing takes a couple of minutes, when usually in Shopify you don't actually even do anything to get a menu. It gets created on its own, but you can't change it, or you can change it but very slightly. And so that's the type of builder that this is. I can show you also a bit more of the settings here. You see this is a CMS collection. So usually in Shopify, you would create a blog just by clicking a button called blog, and they would create it for you, and then you would have to set up the article pages and all that. But here you have to literally start it from scratch. Like you have to, unless you buy a template that has one, but if not, then you have to create a collection. And when you create a collection, you have access to a lot of different categories. So you have like blog posts, author, categories, projects. You choose whatever you want. You give a name here, and then you start mapping it to different information. So you want, for example, in the article, you would want it to be a title. You would want there to be a slug all the time, of course, because the slug is like the end of the website. Like here is an example. Here, for example, we have the custom fields, numbers, dates, switches, colors, options, references to other pages, phone. You can add a lot of things, and all these different types of fields are interchangeable, so you can change them later if you want, and you can also choose different types of fields no matter what you're using. So having a template here, for example, see this is a blog field. Well, it's a category of blog, but I chose the field name, slug. Custom field is body, so the text, this is rich text, so there's headers and maybe bolds and stuff. And then there's an image, there's a thumbnail image. Is it featured or not? I chose that name, featured. So it's basically you're creating the back end of the things. But in Shopify, they would have their own things called feature, but you can't add a new field like this one or this one and choose what it does or what it is or what it's called. But here you can. And so yeah, so that's pretty much how these more complex designers work. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. If you want me to go in any details for any of these different TMSs or designers, let me know. I'll be happy to do a video on that. And if you have any tools you want me to cover, I'm a big fan of software. I'm just waiting for someone to tell me go on that video, and I'll do that. So take care guys, and check out these videos if you haven't for the strategic path.